As I was approaching my 60th birthday, I was starting to feel this drive and this push really because my father died at the age of 60. If you want to make a change in the world, you've got to be the change, right? So if there's something you want to do and there's something that you feel passionate about, then you should go ahead and do that. No one else is going to do it for you. You're in control of your own destiny. You can do things to build that reality. That reality or might not be something that's immediately available, but you can certainly work towards it. Try and clear your mind, right? Get into that meditative state because that's when clarity comes. Break it down into what it is and how you can do it, and you can achieve it. Today's episode of Success Matters is going to be a little bit different. I'm joined by Steve Payne, who has previously been a guest on Success Matters and shared his story. Steve is someone who I call my communication guru because he taught me a lot about how to communicate with people. And Steve is going to interview me about my experiences on my recent trip to the Himalayas. And so, Steve, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sanjay. This is turning the tables a bit, isn't it? So how does it feel to be on the other side?
I actually feel a little bit nervous turning the tables. It's kind of weird, right?
You get to go through. Thank you for the opportunity to interview you. We go back a long way as well, so it's really great to be able to catch up with you, because normally, of course, I'm doing the interviewing, and the most important thing when you're interviewing is your guests, and so I'm fascinated by a lot of the things that you've done. But one of the things I'm really fascinated by is your trek to the Himalayas, your trek to Everest Base Camp. How did that come about? What's all that about?
So there's lots of things to this. I had determined, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago that I wanted to do this. This was one of those bucket list items that initially it was just a little bucket list thing, Everest Base Camp, on a spreadsheet with other things to do. And I spoke to a number of people, a couple of my cousins have done it and other people that I know, and they've all been raving about it. So it kind of came up higher in the list of things. And as I was approaching my 60th birthday, I was starting to feel this drive and this push really because my father died at the age of 60. And so I wanted to do something like this because 60 was in my mind as, a key moment. I wanted to do something whilst I was physically able to do it. And I initially had planned to do it before I had my 60th birthday, but that wasn't going to be possible. So I decided that in my 60th year, I am going to do this. So one day I said to the family, right, I'm doing this, I'm booking it. You can come if you want to come or don't come, that's up to you. And I went ahead and booked my trek and the flights and everything. And this was probably about 7 months to go. And then about a month later, my son said, I'll come along as well. So my son and I both actually ended up doing the trek. And so it was something that I wanted to do. It's something that, had kind of come up in my mind as being something that's great to do. There was this thing about doing something physical whilst I'm able to during my 60th birthday. So all of these things kind of came together and it crystallized into actually taking action against something that was really at one point just a dream of doing it.
It's interesting because a lot of people have dreams, but a lot of people sit on their dreams and they don't turn them into reality. You mentioned about 6 or 7 months beforehand, you booked the tickets. So once you've done that, of course, it's more than a dream. You've invested in it. It's in the diary. So what's the difference for you? What was the difference between having that dream and deciding to turn it into a reality? Actually put your money where your mouth is, literally put your money where your legs were, and book it and make it a reality.
Yeah, that's so what is the difference? I think I've kind of gone through this process of self-discovery over the last few years. And one of the things that I've recognized is that if you want to make a change in the world, you've got to be the change, right? So if there's something you want to do and there's something that you feel passionate about, then you should go ahead and do that because no one else is going to do it for you. You're in control of your own destiny. And so in this instance, this was something that I really wanted to do. This is something that I got a passion for. I've wanted to go to the Himalayas. And actually, part of it was also crystallized because the winter before, we had gone to Simla in the foothills of the Himalayas. And I say foothills, it's still on the mountain, it's still 2,500 meters elevation. And you could see the Himalayas in the distance, and it was just like an amazing view. So the thought of actually being in the Himalayas, going to the tallest mountain in the world, at least a base camp anyway, was something that really kind of worked for me. The other part of it was also doing the research, because it's all well and good having this dream, but I have a condition called obstructive sleep apnea. And with obstructive sleep apnea, it means that I stop breathing at night. And the symptom of that, for those that are wondering kind of how do you know, is very high levels of snoring. And yeah, when someone's snoring and they have that sudden pause and you think, have they stopped breathing or so, that's actually what was happening to me. And so I have a machine called a CPAP machine, a continuous positive air pressure machine, that keeps me breathing at night. Now, one of the factors of those is I have a little travel machine that I take with me, but it's only rated up to a certain height, 2,800 meters. And I'm going to be sleeping at up to 5,000 meters. So it's like, what do I do with that? So I had to do some research that, is this going to be possible? Is it going to be possible with regards to power as well? Because the tea houses don't all have power. So how do I get battery power into play? So there was a period when this was something I was looking to do before my 60th birthday, which was all research, and of course costs and the right trekking company and all of those things. So that groundwork happened to allow me to actually then book it when I said, this is it, I'm going to do it.
So there's also an element of danger in there that I'm hearing, because what if it doesn't work? For example,
Yes.
you can't power it, or it doesn't work at that altitude. Did that cross your mind as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you think about it, you're putting your body under a lot of stress, right? You are going at very high altitude. So the altitude in itself is a challenge. Then you're trekking every day, going up and down, footpaths that are not stable or secure, and your mind is concentrating on that. So that's the second layer of stress. Then the third layer of stress is you're eating different food, right? So the food and the water is there. And then for me, this fourth layer of physical stress, which is actually, will I be able to breathe at night or not through this machine? Now, my view was, I lived a long time with this condition, and the only real symptom, well, there were a number of symptoms. One of them was the snoring. The other was that I would feel very tired in the afternoon because my body hadn't had time to recover. So there was always that risk that I wouldn't get enough oxygen at night. But as it transpired, I'd done the research. I'd read that people had taken their CPAP machines up to high altitude and that they had used them. And I came across a charity that actually hires out batteries. So I hired a battery from them. I hired a solar panel from them, which my initial aim had been to hook the solar panel to my backpack and trek with that. But the solar panel was A, way too big, and B, too heavy to take with me. So it ended up just staying back in Kathmandu. But I was able to charge the battery at each of the tea houses. So I was able to use the battery at night. And thankfully it worked. And I actually probably got a better night's sleep than many other people, where altitude does affect your ability to sleep. It affects your breathing. So yeah, it worked out. It worked out okay. But there was an element of danger for sure. And I'd always said in my mind that if I can't make it to the top for whatever reason, I will turn back, because there was that thought in my mind. My wife had said, don't try and be a hero. If you feel you can't do it, then turn back. So there's always that element that you can always, come down, descend from where you were.
You've hinted at a few things in that, because it turns out that maybe that was an advantage with the breathing, perhaps ironically, but also
Ironically, yeah.
you've hinted at you've hinted at a few things there which point to logistics. And for many of us who haven't been to Everest or the base camp, and we don't really know what that's all about, could you give us some idea of the distances, how much distance in a day, the altitudes, and some of the logistical things you had to think about?
Yeah, absolutely. So the trek itself is between 14 and 15 days in total, of which you spend 9 or 10 days going up to Everest Base Camp, and then the other days coming back down. So to start with, you of course land in Kathmandu. That's the international airport. That's where you begin your journey, as it were. And the first thing you've got to do is actually pack a bag that is within 15 kilos, because you're not. The airplanes that fly to Lukla, which is the mountain in the airports, is very small, and it can only take a certain amount of weight. So you've got a limited weight for both the flight, but also the porters who carry your bags whilst you're trekking. So there's that balance. So you've got 5 kilos you put in your backpack, 10 kilos in this bag, of which, so we literally had to unpack everything and repack it to get to that sort of weight limit. And our guide was very clear about the maximum weight you could put in these bags. And there was a little scale in the hotel reception you could weigh your bags on to make sure that it was all okay. So that's the first point of doing that. You fly from Kathmandu, you fly to Lukla Airport. Lukla Airport is a very small airport. The runway is 500 meters long, and it's on a cliff edge, right? So it's like that. And if the plane doesn't take off, you're going down. It's that kind of thing. It's called the world's most dangerous airport for that reason. And the other reason is there's a lot of the clouds can come in and out very quickly being at that altitude. And it's in amongst all these mountains. So the pilot has to come through mountains and turn around a corner of a hill to see the runway and then to land on the runway. So it's quite a scary flight, especially when there's turbulence, which is what happened for us. So you're doing that, you get to Lukla, great, you land, you've arrived, and then your trek begins. So in our case, we went from a place called Lukla to Phak Ding. That was the first leg of our trek. It was roughly 6 kilometers, maybe 8 kilometers actually. And you're going down and up and down and up. So you're not actually gaining any more altitude. You're at 2,800 meters. You finish at about 2,800 meters and you spend your first night there. And then from there, you trek to a place called Namche Bazaar, which is at 3,800 meters. So that the distance is quite long. It's about 14 kilometers, but you're gaining almost 1,000 meters elevation. So and again, it's up and down. So the total is quite high. And in that process, you cross something called the Hillary Bridge, which is a suspension bridge. I think it's about 130 meters up across the valley. So you're crossing this suspension bridge, which is quite an interesting experience in itself. From Namche Bazaar, you stay there for 2 nights to acclimatize because you've gone up, so high. Then from there, we went to a place called Photse, which is a village where every house is owned by a Sherpa who has summited Everest. So it's quite an interesting, village to be in. And the tea house we were staying in, that the owner had summited Everest 15 times. So he wasn't there, unfortunately, to share his stories, but he had all the certificates around. So that then takes you to the third day, then the fourth day, the fourth day because you spend 2 nights in Namche. Then from there, you go to a place called Dingboche, which is another elevation gain. So you spend 2 nights there. Then from Dingboche, you go to a place called Lobuche. And then from Lobuche, you then go on to Everest Base Camp. You go to a place called Gorochep and then Everest Base Camp. So that, like I said, is about, depending on the acclimatization days, some people do it in 7 days. Our trek was 9 days to allow for the acclimatization. And then on the way back, it's a faster kind of, because you're descending, but it's still a difficult one because you're going uphill, downhill, and you go to a place. We went to a place called Pengboche, and then from Pengboche to Tenboche, and then from there to Namche Bazaar, and then flying back. So logistically, you carry a 5 kilo backpack for your day, 2 liters of water in your bag. You have to drink 4 liters of water a day to overcome the acclimatization. You carry, of course, any wet weather gear, just to be prepared, and snacks and that sort of thing. And the porters carry your bags, the rest of your stuff, between each of the locations for you. So they're just, shooting off ahead. They're very well acclimatized and very fit. So those are some of the logistic elements of trekking to Everest Base Camp.
I'm intrigued by the snacks. I mean, for, the amount of calories you're burning and the energy you're using, what kind of snacks would typically be in your bag?
Yeah, so I miscalculated. really, what I would need in terms of the snacks. You're burning roughly 5,000 calories a day. So that's a lot of calories that you're burning. And I wasn't snacking enough, and that then affected my ability to walk and have the energy. I did also suffer from upset stomach, which goes back to your body being under stress with the altitude and with the trekking and with the food. So yeah, I wasn't snacking enough. But typical snack things, energy bars, protein bars, chocolates. I ended up just buying chocolates on my trek. Snickers bar, Snickers bar was the one that I was buying on a regular basis. At tea houses, we would stop and have ginger honey lemon tea, which is very sweet. So that kind of gives you a bit of a sugar boost. You have to actually keep yourself fueled. And I knew that before I went, because on my treks here, I regularly fuel myself every hour and a half or 2 hours. But there I wasn't doing that. And I don't know why, but I just didn't do it.
And the tea houses themselves, so you'd get to those at the end of a trek, yeah? So then you would also for lunch or on the way, or
Yeah.
how does that work?
So you have tea houses that you stop at for lunch, and a tea house typically has like a lounge dining area, either inside or outside. We were very lucky with the weather. It was sunny every day. So when we stopped for lunch or tea, we'd sit outside in the sun, but you could sit inside, and they usually have some accommodation as well. So the tour operators had organized all the stops that we were going to have for tea, for lunch, and then, getting to the final destination. And each of the tea houses, you have a little twin room. There's no heating in the room, so the accommodation itself is relatively basic. There's a sort of central area where you all gather. They light a fire in a stove that kind of gets you warm. And you've got, very basic wash facilities. You've got a toilet. You've got probably a sink. Some have showers, but the showers are cold. And at a higher altitude, you don't want to be showering when it's -20 outside. It's just, one of those things.
I think you just prompted my next question. What sort of temperatures are we talking about? -20?
Yeah, so at the lower altitude, like when we stopped reflecting, the temperature was something like -10, -15 overnight. At the higher altitude at Lobuche, it was -25. When we set off on our trek to get to Everest Base Camp, the temperature when we departed was something like -20. So yeah, pretty cold, but a very dry cold. So it's different to Northern European sort of damp cold that I'm used to, and you were used to. So yeah, it's a different type of cold, but still very cold.
And when you eventually get to Everest Base Camp, first of all, what's that feeling like? Secondly, what is the elevation when you get there?
Yeah, so for me, that sort of last leg was a bit of a challenge, because the altitude got to me. I didn't have the energy in my legs and the power in my legs to really do it. So the walk from Lobuche to Everest Base Camp is roughly 10 kilometers. And the elevation from Lobuche, which is 4,900 meters, Everest Base Camp is 5,364 meters. So you're gaining roughly 400 meters. But there's elements in there where you've got to climb a ridge. And we got to this ridge, the first ridge, after a couple of kilometers. And I just looked at it and I saw the rest of the group zigzagging their way up this ridge. And I said to my guide, I said, I can't do it. I said, I just cannot do it. I haven't got the power in my legs to push myself up these steps. And these, there's rocks and everything you got to kind of not clamber over, but they're sort of 50 centimeter, 60 centimeter step up. So you really need to push yourself up. And so I kind of like resigned myself that I wasn't actually going to get to Everest Base Camp. And she went off to try and contact the lead guide who'd gone ahead, and to let him know that we were turning back. So she comes back after sort of 10, 15 minutes. By this time, the sun has come up. I've warmed up. I thought, actually, maybe I'll try it again. So we start walking, and within a few steps, I was like, no, I can't. So we started walking back. And on the way back, this guy rocks up on a horse, and he has a chat with Sabita, who's my guide in Nepali, and Turns out that our lead guide had arranged up ahead for a horse to be sent to pick me up and take me to Everest Base Camp on horseback. So
Wow.
it was something that, like I said, a moment ago I'd resigned myself that I wasn't going to make it, and now suddenly there's this horse appeared, and it's like, okay, I'm going to do it. So clambered on the horse, and the horse very carefully, takes you up. We stopped at a place called Gorakshep, which is a very small village settlement almost, which is there before people go on to Everest Base Camp. So stop there for a quick break and for the horse to have a break and whatnot. And then back onto the horse to actually take me there. And my guide waited for me at Gorakshep. He said that because of the altitude, you've got to stay on horseback. You can only spend 10 minutes at Everest Base Camp. But he also said, I didn't want you to come this far and not actually have the experience of getting there. So that's, he did all of this. It's completely outside of company policy. So I had to sign a waiver and what have you. But it was like, great, he arranged this for me. So getting to Everest Base Camp itself, at the time it was great, right? We've made it. We're there. We've got this. There's a rock there that's got Everest Base Camp kind of spray painted on it, and it's like, okay, because it's off season. When we went, there were no tents. There was no sign of a base camp. It was just rocks. But as you're approaching it, you're coming through the Kum Glacier, and the pictures don't do it justice. When you see it in real life, the scale of it, the fact of the amount of ice that's there, or the rocks that are there, it's something that's constantly moving. You don't necessarily see the movement, but the buildings at Gorakshep get affected by the movement because it's actually taking the ground with it. And then you look out over the Kum Icefall, which is the first thing climbers have to cross when they go onto Everest. And then you look up, and Everest is actually hidden by another mountain at base camp. So you can only just see the tip of Everest behind it. And you look and you think, that's another 3.5 kilometers people have to go up to get to. And you think that's pretty crazy, right? That people actually go ahead and do that. So it's very, I don't know. It's a wonderful experience, but it's afterwards. After, when I sat back in Gorakshep, I sat there for a cup of tea and just to refresh. The emotions came over me. I was just crying. I was crying because I'd made it. I'd done something that I wanted to do. My son had surprised me by asking everyone to give me a round of applause and 3 cheers for me for making it, which was like, that was so touching. I was really, really touched by that. So I just sat there and I just had all these tears streaming. And Savita, my guide, is thinking, what's going on? And she doesn't know what to do. It's like, what do I do? But after a while, it was kind of like, yeah, I got that out. And we then headed back to Lobuche. So in answer to your question, it's quite an amazing site. It's certainly a site that pictures and words cannot describe to get there. And it is a very emotional experience as well.
I can get the sense of that just by hearing you and watching you talk about that. You can sense your connection to it and possibly some of the things you're imagining as you're relating that story to us all now. And one of the other things that struck me about this is that this podcast is called Success Matters. And in order to get to Everest Base Camp, you're hit by obstacles and challenges. For example, giving up. I mean, the human story is full of success, failure. And again, looking that you could almost taste it and it was almost taken away from you. And you'd kind of resign yourself to the fact it wasn't going to happen. And then a solution presented itself. And this reminds me of, so many of our journeys through life. It's a metaphor for all of those things. Don't give up. Where there's a will, there's a way, all of these kinds of things. And so it also strikes me that you can't achieve a personal goal like this without the input of so many other people. Your guide, the fellow hikers, for example, the person with the horse, the people who carry the backpacks, the people who are there with the tea houses, all of that. Nothing could happen without that. And so that sense of teamwork in achieving a goal, it could be a personal goal to you, but when do we ever achieve something purely on our own? And I'm just thinking about the importance, first of all, of teamwork in that experience.
You're absolutely right. Teamwork is so important, and There are people who do this hike on their own without a guide, without any porters and the like, but they still rely on the tea houses and the refreshments that are served and all of that. In our case, I'd absolutely said that I'm going to do it with a trekking company. And so the trekking company makes a lot of arrangements. We had the guides, right? Give them a shout out. Raj, who was our lead guide, was fantastic. Manny was a bundle of laughs all the time and a joker. Inder, who was pretty quiet, but, very, very capable guide. And then Sabita, who was the youngest of the group in the guides. And she spent most of the time with me because I was always at the end, at the back of the group. But the group as well, they do carry you through. We had a group of 8 or 9 20-somethings, and then a couple of mid-40s, and then me in my 60s. And we had a camaraderie that brought us through. And teamwork is absolutely fundamental. And one of the things, when I was deciding to do the trek, I was deciding to do it for myself. It was really a personal journey, a personal mission. And then people were asking me, well, are you doing it for a charity? Are you doing it for a cause? Are you? And that's like, initially I was like, no, I'm not going to do it for anyone. But then when I started to get these questions, I thought, actually, do you know what? This is a good metaphor for teamwork. And I'm the chairperson of Blue Bike Foundation. So I decided, well, actually, I should do it on behalf of Blue Bike to raise awareness. And the ability to get Blue Bike off the ground, that was only possible because of teamwork. The work we do in Blue Bike is a teamwork thing. We get people volunteering, we get people designing workshops for us, we have people delivering workshops for us. So when you look at it that way, the linkage is pretty strong. And so I actually took a banner with me to Everest Base Camp and took a photograph, my son and I holding it, of Hike for Blue Bike, which was building awareness for Blue Bike. And interestingly, in the process then, Raj actually introduced me to the head teacher in his local village by WhatsApp. And we've had a conversation about how we could help that local school under the auspices of Blue Bike with some of the equipment and things that they're looking for. So the bringing awareness of Blue Bike actually had a real knock-on effect there.
I think it's amazing. I did see that picture of you holding the banner at Everest Base Camp. And I thought it was fantastic, first of all, the teamwork, because I'm aware of all the work that goes into Blue Bike. The fact that I believe you had to sacrifice some kit in your backpack to be able to take that banner up there too. And that's a values-driven thing. What's more important, these snacks or whatever it might have been that you sacrificed, or this banner to raise awareness of this amazing foundation, which is great. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you very briefly, for somebody who doesn't know what Blue Bike is, in a simple paragraph, could you explain what the Blue Bike Foundation is all about?
Okay, so Blue Bike Foundation is a charity, and our mission and goal is to unleash the potential of every child. Now, the way we look to do this is really through education, but not necessarily formal education, but bringing skills and capabilities to kids, so that then, taking the bike as a metaphor, I like the bike metaphor actually. You learn the skill of riding a bike, and that takes you through your life, because once you learn to ride a bike, you don't forget that. And as a kid, it helps you explore your neighborhood. You can make new friendships. You can start to do things. As a teenager, maybe you use it to do delivery jobs, or you use it for certain things. As a 50-year-old adult, you ride bikes to keep fit. And so there's a whole kind of plethora of things that come from just being able to ride a bike. And so some of the skills that we look to bring to the table for children is around that. We do have a project that's pretty big that we want to do as well, and we've started the process of working on this, is around mental health, because we've recognized that mental health challenges are there, and they're very pronounced for teenagers and younger, young adults. And social media amplifies that. And if you look at reports by UNICEF and the Children's Society, UNESCO, every one of them talks about this mental health challenge. And like in Australia, they've banned social media because they've recognized that as being one of the causes. So we've got a toolkit that we're developing to help parents, to help children, to help teachers, and that again, taking the teamwork element, that is only going to come together with teamwork. And yeah, people like yourself, people like me, Anita, who runs Blue Bike Foundation, Justina, who runs a similar foundation in Poland, Swan Project here in the UK, Pearl. There's lots of people who are involved in helping us make this come to reality. So yeah, Blue Bike is there very much around helping children unleash their full potential and giving them tools to help with their life journey. Like I said, taking the bike as a metaphor for that.
I love that, and I love about what I love about that is how it's a perfect metaphor for the trek to Himalayas as well. And when you think about somebody saying to you, you're doing this for a charity, and you thinking no, and then thinking actually, well, yes, of course, I can do this for a charity.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the metaphors are such powerful ways of teaching, that when you think about the message you're sending to those kids as well, and to the parents of the kids, and everybody who's looking to, they have these goals about life goals, about how kids can grow up and have amazing lives. And you yourself trekking to the base camp of the Himalayas, again, is a metaphor for overcoming challenges and turning the dreams into reality, which is effectively what you did with your vision. But also now you're helping kids through the foundation do exactly the same thing. So what are some of the lessons that you hope the parents and kids could also take from the metaphor of you linking that trek to the Himalayas with Blue Bike?
Yeah. So, it's not really a one-word answer. I was trying to think of words that would kind of describe it, but there's a number of elements to it. So the first thing, as you say, dreams into reality, right? So you've got a dream or a vision. You can make it a reality. One of the key factors, and again, one of the things that Blue Bike really looks to do is, for all of us that are involved in Blue Bike, education was a key factor in making us have the life that we have today, right? So creating a new reality through education. So you can do things to build that reality. That reality or might not be something that's immediately available, but you can certainly work towards it. And the trek is a perfect example that getting up to Everest Base Camp was the target. And I had to climb, gain 7,000 meters. We covered 140 kilometers. Every single step was one step towards the goal. And some of those steps are small, some of those steps are big, but that's what you're doing. So, so I would say that's one angle, if you like, of how it links. And the other is, sometimes goals feel really, really big, right? So the thought for many people of going to Everest Base Camp is like, no, that's not for me. That's too far. That's too big a task, too more than I can chew. But actually, break it down into what it is and how you can do it, and you can achieve it. So just a matter, like I said, I did the research before I actually booked it. So I did some research. I broke it down into those things that I could control. What's in my control? What can I actually look at? And then embarked on that journey. So I would say those are probably two linkages between the trek and how parents and others who have got a dream or a vision can actually make it happen.
I love that. And the fact that, you don't have to do it on your own. You can leverage support. There's always support. There's always people that could possibly, lend a hand.
Yes.
I'm thinking of the metaphor of the horse, for example. I'm sure there's more metaphors I could find in a horse getting you up to base camp too. But again, it's all these people coming together. And when you think about Blue Bike and the foundation and the amazing work it does, and the vision, the dreams of the kids, of the parents, and of all the people, of course, who are making it happen. When you think about how people can get involved, you couldn't have done it without support. Everybody is supporting everybody else's dream as well as their own by implication. And so when you think about how Blue Bike, because we all have goals, right? This is success matters because it matters. And therefore, lending a helping hand. How can people lend a hand? How could people get involved with Blue Bike, for example, to lend a helping hand to Blue Bike?
Yeah, absolutely. So with Blue Bike, volunteering is absolutely one way you can get involved. As a charity, we're always looking for funding to help with projects, so donations. If you have an idea as to how we could change the life of children, let's explore that and work together. And if you want to get involved in some of our key projects that we have, we're looking always for expertise. We're looking for people who've got skills they can bring to the table. Get in touch with us. It's pretty easy to get in touch with us. contact@bluebikecharity.org is our email address. And from that, we can start the conversations and we can, see where that takes us. But absolutely, we're always looking for people, good people that are looking to help. And I think as humans, we have a natural desire to help others and serve others. We're social creatures. So this is definitely one way in which you can give back to society.
And how could people get in touch to learn more and to learn how they can lend a hand?
Yeah. So we've got our website, which is bluebikecharity.org. So that's all one word, bluebikecharity.org. You can have a look at that, or you can get in contact. You can contact me directly. I'll give my email address in the show notes, or we have our general contact email address, which is contact@bluebikecharity.org. And that email will work its way to us, and we'll get back in touch with you.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And a really worthy cause as well. Supporting kids. Could there be anything more important than that? The next generation. Finally, just to begin to now bring this fascinating conversation to a conclusion. Again, I keep coming back to Success Matters. I mean, it's a great title because it does matter. So having embarked on that journey, having had that dream, having turned that dream into a reality, having gone from the dream into the harsh reality of what it means to achieve that. If there were 3 bits of either advice or 3 learnings that you got from that experience, what would they be? And I know I'm throwing that at you. So.
Yeah. So the first learning that I had, and you reflect on it, because whilst you're doing it, all you're thinking of is that next step. All you're thinking of is, if I put my foot there, will I be safe and secure to take the next step and the next step? So that's literally all that's in your mind. But what that gives you is the opportunity to clear your mind, and you clear your mind, and it's very meditative. And yes, you're breathing hard and you're struggling and everything, but you're in a summer state of meditation. And so the first thing I would say is stop and think of, try and clear your mind, right? Get into that meditative state, because that's when clarity comes. And clarity right now is one of the things that Tony Robbins says, be the guardian to your mind. And at the moment, with social media, with all the inputs that we're getting all the time, we don't stop to let our brain process things. So stop, right? Find ways to stop. The second is actually the real importance of physical activity, because in that I was away for 3 weeks, and of which 15 days was hiking. The feeling that you get from physical activity is actually, I don't know how you describe it, but it really kind of clears you, if one or a better way of putting it. And you come back with better posture. You come back with a better outlook in life. I lost weight as well, or I lost 5 kilos in the process, and that was great too. And just that posture element, that in itself makes a difference, because Steve, because you told me this, you can be sitting down like that, or you can be sitting up like that, and it just changes your whole outlook. So that element, absolutely. A third thing, we live a very luxury life, and you kind of forget how much of a luxury life we live. And there are children, who are living in difficult circumstances. One of the things that, struck me, every day, you get up, you want to wash your face, you want to brush your teeth. The water is freezing cold, or there is actually no water because the pipes are frozen, and you've got to use your water bottle. And it reminded me of growing up as a kid. For a few years, we lived in housing that had no heating, that was really, really cold. And there's lots of kids that are living in that sort of situation today, even in developed countries, countries that are considered, economically developed. And so it was quite humbling to have that experience, to almost be taken back to my childhood days of that. And so just remember that we do live in no matter how bad things may appear or whatever, we have the luxury of heating, of hot water. If you live in a hot country, air conditioning, all these things, we take it for granted. There's going to be food in the fridge, that there's, you can go to the supermarket and all of these things. These guys that live on the mountain, they don't have those luxuries, but they still have a very fulfilled life, and they have a very happy life. So it was real, let's remember that we actually have a lot going for us, and we should embrace that and do things with that.
Absolutely. And bringing Blue Bike in again, providing opportunities for people who naturally don't have perhaps the advantages of others, that we can help with that too. So thank you for sharing not only that amazing story of your trek up Everest and to Everest Base Camp, and turning a dream into reality, linking back, of course, to the theme of the show, because success does matter. And it's not necessarily, presumably, about getting to Everest. It's what that means on a bigger scale for you. It's the metaphor of being able to achieve, to be able to dream, and to turn that dream into reality. Thank you also for sharing the story of Blue Bike as well, which I think is really fascinating in the foundation, and how people can help with that too. Was there anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
Well, I mean, normally it's me that's signing off, right? Saying thank you for your time. But thank you for your time, Steve, for actually, turning the tables. It's been, for me, a really unique, different experience for my own podcast to be, interviewed for it. But no, it's great. And as I said, we'll be putting in the show notes details of Blue Bike, how you can contact us, what you can do to get involved. And yes, my thanks to you, Steve, for being the interviewer this time around.
A great pleasure, and a great shout out to all your guests, because I think it's much harder to be a guest than it is to be an interviewer sitting here.
That's just true. So, I've learned
that. Well done to you too, and congratulations on turning a dream into reality.
Thank you. To find your success, contact me at info@successmatterscoaching.com. That's info@successmatterscoaching.com.